might have questioned, like, in particular, the decision to put electric service on the other side of I-35 on 175th. That could have been questioned because of the fact that there was no coordination with water and wastewater on that decision. So, I mean, can we say that, and particularly from economic development perspective as well, I don't think there was nearly the communication that was required.
Well, and I'm not sure that they should have been part of the economic development
well, I mean,
conversation.
if they're making decisions that
talking
impact economic development, and there's no communication between city agencies and the electric utility board, that's a problem.
Well, and that could be a generational thing between council members, between councils, between boards, between
city administrators?
City administrators,
Absolutely.
between directors.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is, I think that it positions us for more peril down the road if we do it that way. Just because if you get a couple of bad apples, go home and Google KCK BPU and see some of the things that come up. I mean, we're talking.
What comes up when you do that?
The thing that'll come up first is the embezzlement in 2008. There was a guy that was in line to be the next utility director. He was actually in-house counsel at the time. He and another attorney from an outside law firm, turns out they'd been embezzling money. When they were indicted, it was $125,000. By the time they were ready to go to trial, it was $400,000. The gentleman that was in-house counsel ended up committing suicide, although that was thought to be not necessary. There were conspiracy theories that abounded around that, and as it turns out, the guy that was charged with him was off on all the charges because I guess the guy that committed suicide was the whistleblower. I'm not making this stuff up, so.
This is the model that you kind of want us to go down? Is this
No, this is not the model I want us to go down.
Citizen engagement you seek? How is this model different?
Well, no, because KCK is an separate elected board, run totally by themselves.
And I'm not for that in any way, shape, or form.
I'm not in.
Have somebody appoint, is that what you're saying?
With control. I guess.
How is that any less political than us making the decisions to begin with?
Well, I don't think it's less political. I think it's, well, actually, I do think it's, I think it's
too.
how you structure it. I think it's one thing, just like it's one thing to have people come in and have discussions and plans about something that maybe they have some expertise in, and make recommendations as long as the proper oversight and the council's making those final decisions. I mean, to me, that's the difference.
Right.
And if you have
I
people
agree.
who want to be involved, what's the harm? As long as the council's approving this, I don't understand the harm.
Because you can't remove those people like you can an elected official. If you're saying you don't want the KCK model, which is elected officials.
We don't, no.
We don't. I don't think that's even on the options list.
Well, it was earlier tonight. You said that was a decision that hadn't been made yet.
Well,
whether we appoint or elect, and you've said it many times before, but I mean, you can't get rid of somebody that is not. You can't easily get rid of somebody that is not elected. That's the reason it should be. The power should be retained with the five of us that do make those decisions.
Hold on a second.
Because if you don't like somebody, you can recall them. You can, as we've seen, even if it's not true, right? You can still recall them, but
They do
Bringing the
have
hot
appointment
meter
periods that
today.
come up for reappointment and are then, once again, gone through the process, either the process we have in place or a different one that are vetted by the city council. So to say you don't have any control, and that it's easy to do one and not the other, it's just, I'll make it frank, it's absurd.
I
It's
feel
just.
like we have better
it's
control
unstable.
now over the appointed board that we have right now than we had. now can we change it, or can we make it better, maybe, I don't know. I haven't really weighed in on this, but since I'm talking, go ahead. I was always for the BPU, however, once I heard some of the issues, and once I heard that we might lose control, it'd be independent, it would cost more money, we wouldn't necessarily have the control of the utilities that we could utilize to the citizens' benefits. I think number 2 is the way to go with the utilities director. And since we're hiring, or gonna start the hiring process, this is actually a great time, because we can, like, customize this role, this job position for what exactly we want, with all the requirements and all the expertise. So, I'm not looking for the independent board of number 1, because I don't wanna lose the control, plus it's gonna cost more money. I like number 2.
I think it's unfair at this point to say that it's gonna cost more money, because we haven't explored actually what those costs might be. We haven't explored how either one might be able to use shared resources to avoid costs. I don't find it to be absolutely necessary to have an independent HR and an independent accounting team. I think shared resources can still tackle some of those responsibilities. So to say it's gonna cost more money and base our decision on that, I think it's premature to do that, because we still have enough factual information.
I don't think we can use a lot of the same.
Right?
They have to be
Not if they're-
You
independent.
could craft an ordinance that absolutely allow you to do that.
Absolutely.
I think you could absolutely you could create an HR policy within the ordinance that states it's a shared resource, and the HR director's involved in the decision-making process, and here's who actually handles the interviews. I mean, that could be done.
You could also
From the
do
accounting perspective, it is the
accounting
same absolute
transfers, I was
thing.
just mentioning the same thing, you do accounting transfers, and, I mean, there's definitely some ways that you could do it. Now, here's my thinking, did we have as part of the BPU study group, and I'm gonna ask you, Chris, because you were on that group,
So was Chris?
and Christie was also in the BPU study group, was there a cost analysis that was done?
No.
No cost analysis. So, we're going into potentially making a decision on number 2 without really knowing what, if any, cost impact there is on one related to the approaches that we take.
I know that, there was recently done a cost of service, study. Laura, are you listening?
I am thinking about something else, yes. I am listening, I'm having a heart attack.
We did do some cost of service.
Because of why?
Because I'm thinking, may I?
Please.
I'd like to hear some input from staff, I love staff input. This would be a good.
I'm thinking first of all of the SEC presentation,
Okay.
which scares the,
But Jesus.
yes, whatever, out of me. And the one thing I'm thinking, the very first thing that went, when you were talking about transfers, if you have a separate BPU, who's gonna referee how much they're gonna transfer? They don't have to transfer anything. They're separate. So I don't understand it.
They both have the same power, right?
If you're talking about a BPU, I don't know who's gonna, I think that was part of the stuff that was happening before, is there was no, you could say it nicely, single point of conflict resolution, or you could say referee. There was no enforcement piece, because that's where most of the problems were.
But inside the organization, right,
That's
not a
resolved,
problem.
that's resolved, because you're in charge, and you are doing the final decision, and it reports to some sort of single power structure.
Be kinda like, the police department and sort of Parks and Rec, that kind of thing?
Again,
Like
that's,
we
we're
do.
back to the policy decision on
Sure.
how you, I don't wanna discount the citizen engagement piece or whatever, I'm just saying, that referee component, plus the FCC thing, I'm sweating over here, I'm having a heart attack.
Well, I was gonna ask you specific budgetary questions, and that
Okay.
was gonna be one of them, Laura, so I appreciate you.
Well, I don't mean to overstep,
yeah.
but I
Oh.
am really having a heart attack.
Oh,
over
no,
here,
no.
sweating.
And just real quick to Larry's
Yeah.
point, you mentioned parks and police. You know, I don't know how much you did looking around at other Johnson County municipalities, but so many of them have a Parks and Rec committee that's, an advisory committee, and so many of them have like civil service boards.
They have 20,000 people in them, or they have hundreds of, 100,000 people?
You go do your own research if you would like on it, because they
Okay, well,
exist all up and down.
That's fine, that's an advisory board, much like we have with
With planning
proper-
commission, Yeah,
electric
that's,
utilities.
which is what
Yeah,
we're
those-
talking
those
about
are
doing
fine.
here.
Well, not really, you're talking about
Yes, it's exactly what
Board
I'm
of
talking
Public Utilities is what you